to go live on live stream. Okay, we're now live for another Tech Talks, and we wanted to talk about Zoom's new Canvas integration that we just enabled for this fall. I think it's pretty slick. I think it has some good applications for instructors and potentially non-instructors as well. And it's also got a feature that is not quite there yet, so we'll talk about that one a little bit as well. But we're hopeful that that is also going to become a useful tool in the near future. So let me share my screen. I want to share my Canvas course. That. Okay, so here we are in a Canvas course. And right now I do not have Zoom meetings enabled. I can't remember, Jerry, do we have the Zoom meetings enabled by default on new courses or no?
No, it is hidden by default.
It's hidden by default. Okay, great. So when you get into a course, if you want to start using the Zoom integration, you just need to go to the course settings, go over to navigation, and then in our list of tools, nice thing about Zoom is it's all the way down the bottom because of alphabetical order. Or maybe it's not alphabetical order. I don't know why it's on the bottom. All right,
it's in order. It's in order of how they're added, so it's always going to be at the bottom.
That's the most recent addition. That makes sense. All right, so I have now enabled Zoom meetings, so now that's in my course navigation bar, and that's really all you have to do. Just by doing that, it is now connected to our Zoom system, and we can start using it. You don't have to type in any passcode. You don't have to log in anything. It just is already going. So
kind of like Panopto, where it grabs those credentials for you.
Yeah, cool. So when you click on Zoom meetings, it'll take you to a screen where you have two tabs on top. One just says home and one says appointments. We'll look at home first and then we'll look at appointments. So under home, the main feature here is you can just schedule a Zoom meeting. And as soon as I do that, I'm going to give it a name. Call it weekly office hours. We can add sections or groups. If you have more than one section and you only want one part of the class to have access to it, you could have a meeting for one section, a meeting for another section, or by default, it'll just be all students in the class will have access to that meeting. You can give it a description if you want. I'm not too worried about that. We'll give it a date. Let's say I meet on Wednesday afternoons. And the meeting is going to last for 1 hour. And I can also make this a recurring meeting. So because I'm doing this as an office hours, I'm just going to say, I want it to recur every Wednesday until the end of the quarter. I can change the date or until X number of occurrences. So I can do it as a recurring meeting, or it can just be a one-off meeting that I'm scheduling one meeting at a time.
Like if it was a pop-up office hour kind of situation.
Pop-up office hours or exam prep session or something like that. You could just do it as a one-off. If it was a regularly scheduled class period or regularly scheduled office hours, then you could do recurring.
Okay.
And you can also turn on registration. I don't know that I would usually want to do that just because it adds extra layer of work on the student's part. And all the rest of these are fairly standard Zoom hosting settings. You can have people's videos be off by default, give them audio options, allow students to join before the host. You can either have that turned on or turned off, view participants before on entry, which I think is a good idea. You could pre-assign them to breakout rooms if you wanted to. I don't know, this is a scheduled group meeting and you already want students to go into individual groups, you could do that. Generally, I wouldn't mess with most of these settings. You could also have it automatically record the meeting to the cloud and it'll go directly into your Panopto without you having to do anything.
Oh, cool. Like for like exam review, for example. Hey, this Friday we're going to run this exam review. I'll come in or it'll record it.
Or if you're doing like a flex session and you just want to record your lecture automatically, it'll just do it.
Totally that too.
Okay, so I have my settings set the way I want. I'm going to hit save. And if I go back to the home, now it's automatically populated my Zoom meetings with the recurring sessions that I set up.
Oh, nice.
Now, here's what I think is super slick about this. If I go back to the course home, you'll see that it is now in the calendar. So it automatically populates the calendar with any of these Zoom meetings that you schedule. And that's visible to you as the instructor, and it's visible to your students.
And I guess if a student's subscribing to the calendar feed in their email, for example, that will also populate there too. That would be cool.
Yep, absolutely.
Nice.
And let's see, if I go into student view, it'll also put it in their to-do list, which I think is huge.
I really like that for office hours.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that's probably my favorite part about this integration is it shows up the to-do list, and we know for a fact that if something is in the to-do list, students will do it, and if it's not on the to-do list, they probably won't do it. So I like that a lot.
So it looks like we got something in the chat.
Oh yeah, let's check the chat. Like regular Zoom, will closed captioning be an option? Yes, absolutely. It has all of our normal Zoom features. So it has the captioning, it has the annotation tools, it has everything that you have in your normal Zoom meeting. That's all available to you.
So can I make one point of clarification?
Oh, yes.
This is Zoom. Zoom, it's all it is. It's Zoom. There's no regular Zoom, Canvas Zoom. This is Zoom. Every functionality that you have in Zoom is accessible here because we're actually, this is a window that's open on the Zoom user interface. So it is Zoom. There's no Canvas Zoom, regular Zoom. It is all Zoom.
That's good. That's good clarification. So I'm still in student view. So if I'm a student and I go into the Zoom meetings link, then it'll show me the meetings that are scheduled and a join button. And I just click the join button on the date and time that it's scheduled, and it pops me into the Zoom meeting. Same as the instructor. As the instructor, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to click start meeting when my meeting starts. The reason that matters though is it doesn't use your personal Zoom room address, the one that is static. Each one of these has a separate address, which I do like in some cases, because if you're doing office hours for one class or a lecture for one class, you don't want all your students in all your class sections being able to access these meetings. So it's just specific to the students in this course. And then you click start and you run your meeting. And like Jerry said, it is Zoom. It's not special. It's just the normal Zoom that we always have access to. It is Zoom. You do your thing like you always do. And that's it. That's really all there is to it, to that feature of this integration. It's very straightforward. I really like how well integrated it is. I love that it goes into the to-do list. I love that it goes into the calendar. I think it's great. If you do any kind of regularly scheduled Zoom meetings with your students, I think this is a really great tool to use that for that. Let's look at the chat again. Can I make an appointment with just one student? Jillian, but thank you for the segue. That's perfect. So that is the second tool in this Zoom integration. If I go back here and I click on the appointments tab, I'm going to show you how this works. And then I'm going to tell you what the limitations are of this, because there's a few things that it doesn't do as well as I would like it to do yet. We're hopeful that this integration is going to continue to improve and it'll get better and better.
So can I make one clarification here on the question Jillian asked? You can't set up a meeting for just one student. So you can't go into the meeting scheduler and schedule a meeting for just one student. That function is not available yet. It's through the appointments where the student is going to schedule an appointment with you specifically, but you can't schedule a meeting for student A.
Can you schedule, but you can schedule just for one section of the class? Is that still correct?
Yes, you can schedule for one section as long as you got multiple sections, but you can't schedule for a single student yet. That functionality is coming, but it's going to take some time for the Zoom to build that integration.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's helpful. But what it does have is this appointments tool, and it kind of sort of works like bookings or like Calendly. So what you do is you create a schedule in here and you say, you set the days and times that you want students to be able to book with you. So let's say I want students to be able to schedule meetings with me on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I could set separate times for each of those days, but for simplicity's sake, I'm just gonna say Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday between 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. I will let students book time with me. And it'll continue to repeat this schedule until I tell it to stop. So I put the end date, end of the quarter, or the week before finals, or however you want to schedule that. And I want them to be able to book in 15-minute increments. And I want to call it pop-up office hours or something like that. And I hit create. So then let's look at this from the student point of view again. This is what, oops, wrong button. This is what students see when you have bookable meetings set up. So as a student, I would go into Zoom meetings. I would go over to appointments, and I would see Caleb has these pop-up office hours. I can book 15 minutes every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. If I click on that, then it gives me a list, and it tells me for this week, these are the dates that I could book. So let's say, okay, great, I want to book 2 p.m. on Wednesday. You want to book this meeting? I want to book this meeting. Successfully booked. Now, if I go back to appointments, I can see under upcoming events that I have a meeting booked in Caleb's pop-up office hours for October the 18th at 2 p.m. So that is super cool, but here's the limitation right now. When I do this, it does not send me any kind of confirmation email to let me know that I've successfully booked. It does not show up in my calendar. It does not show up in the to-do list. It really only lives in Zoom meetings under the appointments tab under upcoming events. That's also unfortunately true from the instructor point of view. So as the instructor, when a student books a time, I don't get any notifications. I don't get any emails. I don't get any calendar events. I have to go back into appointments and have to look in upcoming events to see if anybody booked any times. And then the other limitation is it doesn't tell me who booked it. I don't see a name in the name column. I just know that one of my students booked this time. So those are limitations currently. It sure would be nice if it sent me and the student both an email saying, Nick has scheduled a meeting for you on Wednesday at 2 p.m. Here's the link to join the meeting. That would be great. It doesn't do that right now, but we're hopeful that, again, as Jerry said, they're continuing to improve this integration and make it more useful and more tightly integrated. So I'm hopeful that eventually this bookable appointments thing will be more user-friendly. Right now, if you were to use this, you're going to have to give very explicit instructions to your students about how to access this, how to use it. And then it falls on you to keep an eye on your appointments tab to make sure you're not missing any students booking a meeting. And it's up to the student to physically write down their appointment on a sticky note or in their calendar or whatever, and then remember to come back and do it. And then likewise, if a student misses or forgets that meeting, you'll never know who it was in the first place.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't know who booked it, so you also don't know who missed it. So that's also a
That's
limitation.
Yeah.
So does it work? Yes. There are limitations though that you have to be aware of and you need to work through.
So yeah, it seems like it's more for the group experiences. The one-on-one is still potentially better managed through bookings or some sort of form that you would have. So using an outside.
I think so. I think if I were to do, let students book one-on-one meetings with me or pop-up office hours, I probably would still use a different tool for now. But if they solve those integration issues and they make it a little bit cleaner, that's
It's
pretty
almost there, right?
It's almost there. It's almost there. So that's great. And then the scheduling the group meetings in the class is excellent. And I think that's a fantastic tool.
That's worth the price of admission for sure.
Okay, we got a bunch of things going on in the chat, so let's take a look.
So we had appointments.
Yeah, okay, so if students books with you, does the instructor get notified? No, unfortunately not.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, student books for at 1 for 1 PM at 12:45, you wouldn't get that
Yeah.
notification.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
last minute bookings could be an issue.
Which like, for example, booking specifically or Calendly kind of fixes that.
Yeah, you
That's
have,
how
you can build in a buffer where you can't schedule
Mm,
up to an hour ahead of time or whatever, you can set that up, so.
and
Can you link your other calendars like you can with Calendly? Currently, no, it does not link to your Outlook, so it doesn't know what your schedule looks like. You have to manually input that and you have to manually organize it. So if you were to do this, you would probably want to block out that time on your schedule and say 1 to 2 on Wednesdays is blocked out for potential student meetings.
Mm.
So yeah, another limitation there. Jennifer says, Joan says, can a Zoom recording show up in the Canvas course? Not directly, but just like every other Zoom recording, it does go into Panopto, into your personal meeting recordings in Panopto. And from there, you can share it out however you like. So yes, it does record your sessions in a place you can access in Zoom or in Canvas, but it's just like every other Zoom recording where you have to kind of manage where it goes.
yeah, or maybe you like link specifically to a folder and then you have that in your modules so that you don't have to like paste a link, but you can always link them exactly to where the recording is.
Yeah, so I've seen instructors do that where they make they set the sharing permissions on their meeting recordings folder to be visible to students in the course. And then they just put a link directly to that Panopto folder and say, this is a link to our lecture meeting recordings. And then it automatically does that stuff for you, which is kind of cool. It does require a little bit of management because you need to turn it back off at the end of the quarter, make sure that the right students have access to it. But that is something that we could help you work through if you're curious about it. How about options for recording like Teams? What do you mean by that, Jennifer?
So on Teams, you can, if you have, the class section for whatever course you're teaching, you can have, recorded almost like, synchronous options for labs or lectures or meetings, and they can all be recorded within the Teams system.
I guess I don't quite understand. How is that different?
I think I understand what you're talking about. So Teams, when you use Teams associated with your course, they actually build a team for your course. So when you record everything in there, it goes into that. Zoom doesn't do that. Zoom uploads the recording only into the Panopto recordings tab, your My Meetings tab in Panopto, and then you have to manage it from there. Either move it to the shell or the folder for that course or for a separate folder that you use to manage your Zoom recordings.
Okay. Thanks, Jerry.
And do you mind going up in the chat really quick? I didn't quite see what Professor Street.
Can students provide a comment on what the appointment is for? Ooh, that's a good question. Let's try that and double check. So if I'm in a student view and I go to the Zoom meetings and I go to appointments and I book a meeting, no, it just goes straight into, you pick the time and you hit book, and that's all it lets you do. So yeah, that would also be nice if it had a field where you could say, Professor Street, I'd like to talk about our upcoming paper, but it doesn't do that. So like I said, there's a lot of things that they could improve with the appointments tool, and I'm hopeful that they will do that, but this is where it stands right now.
Yeah.
And I guess if you're finding that the appointments tool is falling short of your expectations, again, we've got experience building with bookings, for example, or Microsoft Forms. We can do some complex kind of appointment collection materials if you need that.
Yep. Come talk to us if you have questions.
Yeah.
But for the main feature, the scheduling group meetings and classroom meetings, very straightforward, very user friendly. I'm a big fan. Yeah, it's so close to being convenient and helpful. It is almost there.
I
And
feel like that's the kind of like the tagline for a lot of stuff in Canvas.
sometimes so close. Just put that on a t-shirt. Yeah, but if they do update that, we'll probably do a follow-up tech talk specifically about the appointments tab. Once we're really happy with how it works.
Yeah.
Any other questions, ideas? Does this seem like something that would be useful to you? Brick Street uses Calendly. But I can see Zoom is moving to relieve some Zoom customers of having 2 apps. Yeah, I think that's their goal, is to make it a one-stop shop eventually. Will they get there and win? That remains to be seen, but I think that is their goal. We'll see if anybody else has anything they want to add, which is totally fine. Take your time. But that's pretty much what we have.
The link in the.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Yeah, before we go, I'm gonna put the link to our evaluation form. Let's stop sharing.
And yes, Joan, the Zoom meeting will show the student's name in the attendance. I think it should be.
When you do the recording, record a meeting, it will record whatever display name somebody has entered when they join Zoom. So they can make that whatever they want. They can change it. But if you want to use that to record attendance, just probably tell your students, I make sure that the name you put in Zoom is the name that shows up on Canvas so that I can record your attendance. Now, maybe you want to send me that in.
Yeah, I'm gonna send you the link in Teams right now. Sorry.
And I'm saying Laura was saying, I think it'll be great, but we'll take a bit of adjustment. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's kind of the caveat, right?
And as always with tools like this, if you're going to use it, make sure you are giving your students clear instructions for how to access it and what your expectations are for it. But I do think it's a positive. I just put in the chat, and I will also put on the YouTube description later, link to our evaluation form. This is anonymous, but if you want to take a couple seconds and fill it out, it just lets us know how we're doing. If you have any suggestions for future tech topics, we would love to hear that. That would be super helpful. Other than that, I think that does it for today's Tech Talk. Yeah. Thanks for coming. I hope that was a useful one. And we do not have a Tech Talks next week because we are going to a conference. But we'll be back after that. Do you remember what our next session is?
Because it's 2 weeks away, of course not.
No, that's okay. I can't either. I'm sure it's a good one. I'm sure we had a good one.
I think it's a really good one.
It's probably the best ever.
I can just look it up real quick.
It's more than a week out. It's just a black box in my brain.
In 2 weeks.
It's using annotations in Canvas.
Oh, no, that's in November. October 31st. We're doing custom grading schemes.
I am looking forward to that one.
I am too, because I haven't figured out what we're going to talk about yet. But it should be a good one.
Great sell.
I've got 2 weeks. We got 2 weeks to get it planned. But we know it's a question that people keep coming up with is what kind of custom grading schemes can you do in Canvas? Can I do something other than just the standard 4.0 A to F? What else can we do with it? And there's different things you can do to support contract grading, labor-based grading, ungrading, all kinds of interesting things you can do with custom grading schemes. So
we just recently changed a couple of things in the grade book that make everything a little spicier.
Yes, which is kind of what triggered us to do this. Ooh, Jennifer loves using custom grading. Jennifer, I hope you'll come and maybe you can share what you do with it in a couple of weeks. That would be awesome. No pressure, but we'd love to have you. Okay, unless we have any other questions or comments, that does it for today. Thanks for coming, everybody.
Thanks, Caleb.
Thank you. See you on